That day, Iori returned home with Chiza. Upon arriving at Grand Blue, they were met with the sight of Shinji, Ryujiro, and Tashio wearing only store aprons. Iori felt nauseous and wondered why they were dressed like that. They laughed with Ryujiro explaining that they were about to go diving and were wearing swimsuits under the aprons. However, when Shinji and Ryujiro turned around, it was clear they had nothing on beneath the aprons. Suddenly, Nanaka informed them that the guest expected that day couldn't make it due to unforeseen circumstances. They all got dressed and sat down for lunch together. Shinji and Ryujiro mentioned they had free time before the drinking party that night and asked Iori how he planned to spend the time until evening. Iori replied that he didn't intend to join the drinking session that night. This annoyed Shinji, who promptly reminded Iori of the club he had joined. Nanaka suddenly asked if Iori knew where his room was, considering it was his third day at Grand Blue. Iori realized he had been sleeping on campus for the past 2 days. Nanaka expressed understanding if Iori wanted to have fun on campus but insisted he couldn't sleep elsewhere for 3 consecutive days. Iori then conceded that he might indeed skip the drinking that night. Shinji and Ryujiro accepted this, noting that even without Iori, there were plenty of other members in the club. Suddenly, Ryujiro mentioned that they would be drinking that night with girls from Aonu Women's University. Hearing this, Iori begged Nanaka and Chiza for permission to join the party. Seeing Iori kneeling before Nanaka and Chiza, Ryujiro and Shinji asked what he was doing. Iori stated that he now remembered the club he had joined wasn't just about diving. Nanaka and Chiza were puzzled as to why Iori had taken off his clothes. Iori explained it was to show his sincerity. Despite Iori's earnest pleas, Nanaka remained firm, knowing he just wanted to have fun. At that moment, Iori asked Ryujiro and Shinji how he could get permission to go out that night. Shinji suggested giving up as Nanaka was very strict, but Iori refused to surrender. Shinji was curious about Iori's determination. Iori admitted it was driven by his sexual urges. Seeking advice on convincing Nanaka, Ryujiro suggested that Iori unpack his belongings in his room, but Iori felt that wasn't enough. Ryujiro then recommended decorating his room to make it look more mature. Ryujiro and Shinji even offered to help. Iori promptly informed Nanaka that he had finished unpacking and claimed he had become a mature man. When Iori showed Nanaka his room, she was shocked by the decor, filled with adult books, tapes, and pictures. Iori remarked that it wasn't supposed to be like that. Nanaka, surprised, commented that it seemed Iori had indeed matured. Shinji and Ryujiro asked Iori if the plan had worked. Iori scolded them, and Shinji wondered why it hadn't succeeded. Ryujiro noted that when a mother finds adult magazines in her son's room, she considers him grown up. Iori had hoped they would decorate his room normally, like a typical college student's first place living alone. However, Shinji and Ryujiro exclaimed that Iori should have said so earlier. Iori admitted his mistake in asking them for help and told them to take the magazines out of his room. Shinji said that he had actually planned to give one to Iori as a welcome gift and asked him to choose his favorite. Not long after, Chiza came to Iori's room to give him a shelf she no longer used. However, she suddenly saw Iori and his friends watching an adult film together. Without hesitation, Chiza hit Iori with the shelf she had brought. Iori blamed Shinji and Ryujiro for making Chiza misunderstand the situation. Shinji refused to take the blame, pointing out that Iori was the one who invited them to watch. Frustrated, Iori told them to leave but asked them to leave one tape behind for him. Shinji and Ryujiro refused to abandon Iori in his state of distress. They asked for one more chance to redecorate his room, and Iori decided to trust them. Iori then headed to the store where he ran into Tashio. Tashio asked if something had happened as Chiza looked upset. Iori explained that he was getting a warm welcome from his seniors. Tashio commented that Chiza was not handling the situation very maturely. Suddenly, Nanaka greeted Iori. As he was about to explain the misunderstanding about his room's decoration, Nanaka surprised him by saying she did not mind at all. She even mentioned that she had asked for friends, and they told her that it was normal for guys Iori's age. Iori explained that his seniors had been messing with him and that his room's decoration had already been restored to normal. Just then, Kohei was seen returning an adhesive to Tashio. Iori had a bad feeling about his room. His instincts proved right. Kohei had redecorated it entirely with images of loli characters. Horrified, Iori immediately tore down the giant poster. Kohei was furious and even cursed him for it. Iori was exasperated that his room was now filled with Kohei's terrible taste. Soon after, Shinji and Ryujiro arrived to check on Iori's room. They explained that they had asked Kohei to decorate it since he was also a freshman. However, this was not what Iori had wanted at all. he wanted the complete opposite. Kohei finally understood and agreed to redecorate the room again. Iori told him to leave, but Kohei refused. It turned out he had only done all of this in exchange for an adult tape featuring middle school girls, which the seniors had promised him. Not long after, Tashio called Iori over to help him. Although Iori had to go, he was still uneasy about what his room would look like next. His worst fears came true. When he returned, he found his room covered in BL, Boys Love, posters. Furious, Iori immediately punched Kohei. The new decoration was even worse than the last one. Iori ordered everyone to leave, but they ignored him. Shortly after, Nanaka called out to him, offering to help redecorate his room. However, Iori insisted that he was fine. Then the voices from the BL video the seniors were watching echoed through the room, sending shivers down Nanaka's spine. Horrified, she quickly left to call her friend again. Iori returned to his room and shouted that he would personally redecorate it so that he could finally join the party. He also wanted Nanaka to approve of the room's new look. Kohei asked if Iori had any ideas, and Iori decided to fill the room with pictures of Chisa, knowing how much Nanaka adored her younger sister. The seniors were skeptical about the concept, saying the room now looked like it belonged to a stalker.